All right. Quote of the night is to change a habit, make a conscious decision, then act out the new behavior. And that's from Maxwell Maltz. And changing habits has been on my mind frequently over the last few years. This is not news if you have been with me before, either in streams or in my quote of the day series, in general, whatever. But it's been particularly prevalent in my mind this week, the last couple days in particular, but like even maybe, a week or two ago, I was starting to think about things I had to do to get ready to host people in my house. My son's friends are going to be coming over. I don't think any of them are spending the night, but I, of course, had to account for it in case any of them wanted to spend the night and make sure things got cleaned up and, different spaces of my house that need to be addressed and just making sure like laundry is caught up ahead of time. Things are kind of out of my way chore wise so that once the guests are here, however much they are here, all the time can be devoted to whatever they want to do. And one of the things I started doing was looking at some of the things I've been blowing off, figuring out how to be better at. The thing I'm focusing on in particular, besides chores, which honestly, because I have been working on taking smaller steps, breaking things down into smaller pieces, I was able to do a lot of my housework that I would have done kind of all at once just before the expected company arrives, like the day before or the week before or whatever. And I started going, okay, when can I fit in cleaning all of the bathroom and cleaning all of the living room and vacuuming and doing these things? And I was like, well, I could probably do, anywhere from 5 to 30 minutes in the morning between getting my kids ready for school, doing whatever I want to do for myself, whether or not that's just normal self care stuff or if it's also content creation stuff. And then also getting myself ready for work, like all of those things. Like, when can I fit that in that's realistic, that won't drive me nuts, that won't make me feel like I'm having to spend hours and hours and hours at once getting it done? So it's like, okay, I'll get this couch area completely cleaned, like remove the cushions, like clean up any kind of, stains or anything that's gotten on there, vacuum underneath the cushions, get under the couch, and then the next day I did the love seat. And then the next day I did like all of the surface tops and then did some dusting and just, kind of did it in chunks over time. But the other thing I started incorporating, and one of the things I really, really struggle with and have always struggled with because I don't have a good, complete start to finish process for it, is dealing with paperwork, dealing with all the paperwork that comes into the house. I have a drawer. It's all files. When we flipped our house around a couple of years ago, so the kids' bedrooms moved upstairs, the computer room moved downstairs, I realized that there was a butt ton of paperwork that I had been slowly trying to address. But that slow address was every once in a while I would get irritated and spend several hours working on it and, shredding things, sorting things, just organizing everything. And then I would get burnt out on it and I wouldn't do it again for a while. And so when we moved downstairs, I still had a bunch of it to work on. And so I dealt with it pretty quickly after we moved down here. There was some still stuff left over, but I didn't want to have to move everything if some of it was just going in the trash or getting shredded or whatever it needed to do. So I ended up paring it down significantly. But because I have over the years dealt with it in big bursts, it's not really been a daily, weekly, monthly, however long, habit of processing my paperwork. So instead of doing what I usually do, which is let it build up way too long and then try and do it all very quickly, and taking way too long and getting stressed and burnt out and stuff like that, I just started going, okay, when do I want to deal with this? How often do I want to deal with this? And how long do I want it to take? If it was all managed, and instead of kind of hitting the reset button and just dealing with it all at once and going, okay, now I have a clean start. I'm going to start today and I'm going to try and do my new process. I just decided to be like, okay, I really don't want it to ever take more than 2 to 5 minutes every single day. And I don't know, do it in the mornings when I'm doing other stuff, getting my kid ready for school or whatever, because 2 to 5 minutes is not too bad. I can do that while he's changing into his new clothes, going to the bathroom, brushing his hair, getting his shoes on, all of that stuff. It's like while he's doing that stuff, I can sit there for 2 to 5 minutes and pull stuff out of the envelopes, staple paperwork together, sort it into piles, put it away in the files, all of this stuff. But I already had a built up pile. I actually have another built up pile from the last time I tried to do an overhaul of going through all of it at once that had built up and that I still haven't sorted. And I still haven't sorted it yet. But my inbox, everything's already out of the envelopes. I've already separated out all of the recycling. I've already spent a couple of days sorting through the paperwork and pulling out chunks that I can just stick in their files. And I'm going to continue to do that for maybe 5 to 10 minutes every single morning, probably weekday mornings, because that's when I probably will have the most consistent timing to get it done. And I've made it through, I would say, at least a third to half of all of the built up paperwork in both piles. Now, this pile hasn't been addressed yet fully at all, but it was already kind of all de-enveloped and stacked neatly. But the idea I have is that if I start working on building that daily habit, the habit that I actually want it to be in the end, instead of resetting it and trying to start from scratch, where I'm more likely to forget, more likely to blow it off, more likely to be like, oh, it's fine, it's only one thing today or whatever. I'm starting to do the practice of doing it every single day, even if right now it's just about whittling the pile down, instead of doing it all at once, getting annoyed, burning out on it, and then blowing it off for a long period of time to where that's the habit I'm building. I'm building the habit of having to manage it when it's already kind of out of control. And fingers crossed that by doing it this way, I will incorporate the habit of doing it every day versus the habit of waiting till it's out of control and doing it all at once. Because I feel like that's the habit I've been building, and I don't want to do that. I don't like doing that. I hate how that makes me feel over time. I hate being annoyed by it. I hate feeling like it's going to take too long. I hate having to feel like I have to make separate time. I need to figure out how to build it into a daily practice and start at the daily practice level. I have to do a little bit more than what it should be in the end, but that's because I'm catching up. But I don't think that's a bad thing either. The other thing is I'm cutting myself off. Even if I feel like I could continue to sort, I'm cutting myself off because I don't want it to encroach on other things. I want it to fit in the slot. So that's why I've been thinking about habits. That's why I've been thinking about how to build better habits than what I have been building in the past. And I know it works because I've done it with other stuff. Stuff that's relatively new. Paperwork has been a thing that I've had to deal with since before I even moved out on my own. So I've never really built a good habit for dealing with it. I've just kind of reacted to the overwhelming piles. And so I'm trying a new strategy because I don't like the cycle I'm in. And I had to really sit down, look at it and say, how do I want this to look when it's actually managed? And how do I start working on the habit today without having to go through that process of now it's going to take forever because I'm trying to get back to zero all at once. I can get back to zero over time and work towards the new habit, and hopefully that habit will translate into something better. And it's not something new. It's something that I'm trying to change that I've been doing for 30 plus, no, maybe not 30 plus years, close to 30 years, to be honest. If I started doing it, I was a teenager because I started getting paperwork as a teenager. I mean, you got paperwork from school as a kid, had to deal with that crap. Anyway, yeah, I'm trying to modify a habit, which is arguably more difficult than starting a new habit from scratch. So, because you're working against your autopilot, and that's a struggle sometimes for sure. Like, Have you ever done like where you're driving someplace and it's similar enough to someplace you drive way more often and you stop really paying attention to where you're driving and then you realize you've started going the direction that you're not going today, but it's that habitual direction you go? That's kind of what it's like. You're fighting against that urge to just do your autopilot routine. Anyway, I'll get off my little habit building story there because I could go on and on and on about it because it's really, really present. And I don't know if it's just like a surge of energy right now because I'm like, okay, I figured out how I'm going to tackle this one thing. But I can extrapolate what I learned from trying it this way and maybe apply it to other things. And like I said, I've done it with other things. So I'm kind of extrapolating what I've done in the past and applying it to something else. Anyway, all right. Thanks for dropping in. If you want to hang out, I stream live on Twitch and YouTube Thursday evenings and middays on Sunday. I hope you have a lovely day, night, time, wherever you are, whenever you are. I'll see you next time.